For those of you that don't know me, my name is Wyatt. I'm the CEO of Polygon Studios. As you just were told, I used to run gaming at YouTube. I started the gaming vertical at YouTube, led that business for almost 8 years. Gaming is the second biggest vertical on YouTube. It's a multi-billion-dollar business for the company, and so I was really excited about that space, particularly because of the creator economy. You know, in the early days, everyone was like, who's gonna watch people play video games? That's a incredibly stupid idea. People wanna play games. And I always was like, I found interest in watching people play video games, and I thought others might as well. I started to have this kind of curiosity peaked last year in Web3, where I was investing in Web3 games from really prestigious game developers that were leaving studios and publishers to build their own games. That kind of kicked off my interest, and hence joining the wonderful team at Polygon to help with that mission. So for those of you that may not know about Polygon, Polygon started its journey in 2017 under the name Matic. And in June of 2020, they launched their sidechain, their POS chain. Rebranded to Polygon in early 2021, and then also that year, made a very aggressive bet on the future of ZKs. So the team spent close to $1 billion acquiring a couple different companies that had ZK techs that we're actually very excited. I don't want to reveal anything here, but in the coming months, we have some exciting announcements, so be on the lookout for that, of the work that those teams are doing. In the beginning of this year, we announced the raise. We raised $450 million that was led by Sequoia. Big backers like Tiger and SoftBank also joined that. And the big focus was, we have this tech stack. How do we actually make sure we start to work with different people in the games industry, bring them to the fold? And so we spent a lot of time, obviously not just myself joining the team, but really bringing on a lot of veterans and executives from the games industry. And so between those groups, we have, I don't know, something crazy, like 90 years of experience between the leaders across our organization. And we really wanted to do this for two reasons. First, we have all these great people that work at Polygon that know the Web3 space, that know the crypto space, know DeFi. But we wanted to make sure that we added also game development expertise, game publishing expertise, and kind of marrying those two groups together ended up being very powerful for our company internally. And we were like, how do we actually make sure that that resonates externally with our partners? And so what we really focused on was how do we actually start to work with games industry? We think this, Web3 is very exciting. We think games will be the most disruptive, and I actually think the gaming industry is going to be the big funnel for onboarding, 1 billion users into crypto. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about why we're so excited about blockchain gaming, why we're putting all this money into it, why we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars investing in the space. At the end of the day, when you take blockchain and games, you have kind of this unique experience for product developer, unique opportunities you otherwise weren't able to develop before, and you finally add more value to the players, like we were talking about before. People spending billions of dollars, but not having any ownership over it, having no rights, just kind of rolling with it. It's just not a great model for the player long term if we're going to continue to spend billions of dollars in the space. And so if you look at what works for gaming today is great, right? You've got rewards, you have achievements, you have UGC, Roblox, for example. You do have a trading, you do have an economy, but when you actually add the blockchain capabilities to it and actually put games on chain, you now have ownership, you have some semblance of interoperability, you have decentralized governance and verifiable scarcity, and all these things are very important to a gamer. But we do know that gaming obviously has been a little bit of a backlash there. This is why we need great products as well. But if you give people more ownership, and just a say in the decision making, they're actually going to engage more deeply. And game developers spend so much money getting players to come back, continue to engage, and Web3 actually has interesting mechanisms that really allow reward gamers who are driving actual value to the game. So we've been really excited to see how some of this has been playing out. I also believe that it's going to add a different element to UGC, and you can actually incentivize and reward people to play and participate in different ways. So one thing when I was looking at the space last year, I was like, the games are largely pretty rudimentary. It was very nascent, right? I think, you had games that led with financialization first. They weren't really high quality, high fidelity, but you could start to see the promise within those games. This year, it's been pretty exciting because we announced earlier this week, Derby Stars, Wildcard, Metalcore. These are high-end games from great game development teams that are now on the horizon coming out. You have games like Delicium and Tilting Point, and also a different font here, so sorry about that. And Midnight Society. So Tilting Point, rich IP that'll be coming to blockchain games. Midnight Society, drdisrespect, a huge streamer, his studio. And so now all of a sudden, high-quality games take time. And this is a rather quick industry and relatively impatient at times, but now you're gonna start to see in the second half of this year, going into 23, high-end games, and I think this will be a big process for transferring the skepticism of gamers into actual enthusiasm and excitement. Because we've seen that before, time and time again, where gamers were really resistant to the mobile game era. They were really resistant to free-to-play era. And if you actually saw Twitter during those times, it obviously didn't exist during the mobile games era, I'm sure they would have been just as outspoken and vocal then. So we've learned a couple things along the way. One, tokenomic structure. Like, making a good game is very difficult. When you add tokenomics, it makes it even more difficult. We've seen this even where people have tried to do things like Diablo 3 with an auction house, where it actually ruined the overall game and it reduced engagement inside of it. So these are a very fine balancing act that we're trying to help with. We've seen, the one interesting thing about Web3 is you can actually mint and have an NFT project at the start, and then you've got to promise this very compelling roadmap. It's really hard to deliver on timing on that. It's very hard to not have scope creep and other things that negatively impact timeline. So we're really trying to help studios and developers out there, whether big or small, understand these implications and how they can be smarter about it. If you look at the friction and the first-time user experience in Web3 and games, it's pretty bad right now. And you've got a lot of really smart people, some that are in this room today, that are working on having a more seamless integration experience. Whether it's MOONPay or someone like Sequence with their wallet, there's a lot of people that are out there that are reducing this. And I actually think of this as a short-term problem. In 12 to 18 months' time, I think this will be drastically improved upon. And obviously, live service economics, the games industry is a very, very fruitful industry. And so it's going to take a lot to say, well, how are you actually going to make that better for me? How am I going to change that? And so we're really spending a lot of time with established Web 2 game developers and making sure that they understand the different opportunities in Web 3 games. So we've learned a couple things along the way that I think is great to share with the group. I already said about making games is difficult. Obviously adding tokenomics makes it harder. Gamers have historically been very frustrated, again, with the kind of NFTs, what's happening in the space. So much of that is based on poor product experiences and misinformation, right? There's a lot of nuance in understanding the different chains, how things are working, right? And so we really are trying to make sure that we educate and evangelize. Web3 game developers really want not only people that understand the games industry prior, but they need to be working with people that understand crypto and DeFi natively. So this is, again, why we really structured the company the way that we did. And the optionality to build, right? I think Polygon is uniquely positioned because, yes, we have the POS, but we've got SuperNets now. We have our ZKs on the horizon. EVM compatibility, I think, is really important with some of the things that have happened in recent events, so to make sure that you have long-term durability of what you're building as well. And so, when you're thinking about what blockchain should I pick for my game, there's a lot of options, right? One thing that I think is really important, you want to choose a blockchain that is kind of like if you were picking a cloud provider in Web 2, right? You want some kind of history of a product. You want durability. You want to know that it's actually going to be, stay up, be consistent, be reliable, something you don't want to have to worry about. And so this is why Polygon chose to surround itself with Ethereum, right? When we look at it, Ethereum already has this massive ecosystem. It's already got these, it's already the home for decentralized apps. It already has the highest gamer adoption. It already has the largest development community. And then obviously it needed help figuring out how it's going to scale, how games are going to very specifically build on it. So this is why we chose to associate ourselves with the platform and figure out how to scale it appropriately. And I think this design philosophy has worked well for us. It's made us a market leader as a scaling solution from a transactions perspective. And so these are the early days, and I think as you see more games come online and more users come online, this is going to meaningfully scale up. And so we need to be ready for kind of the next leg on how we're going to scale. Our ZK solutions are going to be what changes that. And easily migrating from our POS chain to our ZK chains is something that we're very much focused on. So I think this is why we have, all the biggest Web 2 companies are coming to us. You've seen our announcements with Ticketmaster and Meta and eBay and Stripe and Circle and all these different brands, right? Why are they coming to us? They come to us and they reach out to us is because they want to be associated with Ethereum, they want to be carbon neutral, and they want to scale, and they want to work with the best teams that Web3 has to offer. And so we've been really excited to work with them. But you also can't forget this industry is going to be built by the native Web3 community, right? Yes, we want to be welcoming to Web 2. We want to introduce them to the fold. They'll be very critical in mainstream adoption. But the real builders are in the room. They're here at NFT NYC, and we want to make sure we continue to work closely with them as well. And so when you're thinking about this selection process, I really like this slide because it kind of helps think through all this stuff. You're going to build an app. How do you want to build it? Well, you have these different options now. I think a long Polygon has just been understood as a side